What's up, guys? Ever felt like the streets were a battlefield? Welcome to Protesters versus Cars, where fiery chants, stubborn traffic, and unexpected laughs collide. Buckle up, hit like, and let's dive into the chaos picture. A car parked right in the middle of the road. Outraged protesters swarm in, shouting, "Move it, buddy!" That one selfish act turns a regular commute into a hilarious showdown. It's a reminder that sometimes one small move can spark a major rebellion. Next up, imagine every car on the block joining in to honk like there's no tomorrow. It's a full-on horn-off where even the protesters can't help but mimic the beeps. It's crazy, it's loud, and somehow, it brings everyone together. Ever wonder if cars have feelings? Well, today, they're definitely speaking their minds. We head to a parking lot that's turned into a battleground. Protesters have claimed every inch of space, blocking luxury cars and making it impossible for anyone to get through. One poor driver, clearly late for work, tries to squeeze by, only to be met with a chorus of, "Not today, buddy." It's a hilarious clash of stubbornness and street smarts that proves even the smallest spot can spark a major showdown. Imagine expensive cars strategically parked to block an exit. Protesters use them as barricades, turning the road into their stage. Drivers try to sneak by, but the protesters shout, "Your car isn't getting past us today." It's a live-action clash that's equal parts frustrating and funny. A lone car blocks an entire lane, and protesters quickly turn it into a spectacle. With water balloons flying and shouts of, "Move it, you selfish driver," the scene becomes a riot of laughter and disbelief. One small act of disregard, and suddenly, it's a citywide frenzy. Shortly after, the entire street erupts in a horn-off. Every car's honk joins together in a noisy display of protest. Even the protesters mimic the beeps. It's chaotic, absurd, and totally hilarious proof that sometimes noise is the loudest language of all. As night falls, protesters transform the street with an impromptu light show. Neon signs and flashlights create a dazzling spectacle that turns the dark into a party. Drivers slow down, mesmerized by the display, and even the police can't help but pause. Who knew protest could be so visually stunning? Next, a giant banner meant to deliver a strong message ends up tangled in a car's antenna. Instead of sparking anger, the mishap sends everyone into fits of laughter. "That banner looks better on your car than in your hand," someone jokes, and the moment becomes a fun, shared memory. Here's some adrenaline. During a high-speed chase, police execute a flawless pit maneuver that sends a suspect's car spinning out of control. In one breathtaking moment, the vehicle skids to a stop in a burst of dust. "Did you see that?" someone gasps, as the street goes silent for a heartbeat before erupting in cheers. Amid all the chaos, one car decides it's had enough of rules. It revs up and weaves through traffic like it's got a mind of its own. Protesters and drivers alike watch in disbelief as the rogue car dodges obstacles. "Is it trying to escape or just showing off?" someone jokes. It's a rebellious streak that leaves you wondering if even machines can have a wild side. At a busy intersection, protests turn a routine traffic jam into a full-blown standoff. A line of immovable cars blocks an exit, and drivers are left frustrated as protesters shout, "Your car isn't getting past us today." It's chaotic, hilarious, and totally unpredictable. In a twist you wouldn't see coming, protesters decide to wash the offending car, literally. Buckets, hoses, and a whole lot of soap turn the vehicle into a sparkling statement. "If you can't move it, clean it." They laugh, transforming anger into a moment of pure, silly joy. The street erupts into a wild horn symphony. Every car blasts its horn in unison, while protesters add their own beeps. It's an uproar of sound that feels both chaotic and strangely harmonious. Imagine if horns could talk, they'd be declaring, "We're not backing down." It's an absurd, noisy moment that brings everyone together. Sometimes, even a protest sign has a mind of its own. A massive banner gets tangled on a car's antenna, sparking a hilarious tug-of-war. "That banner looks better on your car than in your hand," someone jokes, and the moment turns into a shared laugh. It's a perfect example of how even mishaps can lighten the mood. One protester's rant stole the spotlight. His raw, rapid-fire words turned frustration into comedy. "Ever notice how anger turns into pure art?" he shouted, and his words resonated with everyone. His passion was contagious, proving that sometimes a well-timed rant can unite a crowd with laughter and defiance. Just when you think things couldn't get any louder, a single driver revved his engine and blasted his horn so relentlessly that it turned the protest into an impromptu symphony. Every car on that street seemed to join in, creating a cacophony of honks that resonated like a rebellious anthem. It was as if the vehicles themselves had a secret pact to voice their defiance. "Honk if you're with me," one protester jokes, making everyone burst into laughter. And let's be honest, isn't there something satisfying about a car chorus when the rules of the road are being challenged? It's like nature's way of saying, sometimes you just have to let it all out. Picture this: a busy downtown street, protesters lining up with slogans and signs, and a lone car parked perfectly in the middle of the road as if it were its own private throne. The protesters tried everything to get it to move, shouting, waving, even playful heckles. But that stubborn car just wouldn't budge. It was as if the driver was saying, "I'm untouchable." Can you imagine the frustration? The tension was so thick, you could cut it with a sledgehammer. Yet in the midst of all this chaos, someone in the crowd couldn't help but laugh, remarking, "Is that car on strike?" The absurdity of it all made everyone wonder, when did parking become a matter of life and death? In a moment that could only happen in the real world, a protector's giant banner got tangled in a car's antenna. What started as a peaceful demonstration quickly devolved into a tug-of-war between an outraged driver and determined protesters. The crowd burst into laughter as someone quipped, "Hey, is that a protest sign or a slingshot?" Amid the chaos, a few brave souls even tried to help untangle the mess, turning the incident into a mini street performance. It was a perfect blend of frustration and absurdity. A reminder that sometimes the message gets a little tangled. Just when you thought the day couldn't get any weirder, a car with a mind of its own rolled onto the scene. Amid a sea of protesters, this vehicle seemed determined to block the entire road, its engine purring like a contented cat and its headlights glaring defiantly. Protesters waved and shouted, "Get out of our way," while the car just sat there, stubborn as a mule. It was as if the car was saying, "I'm not moving until you all back off." The surreal standoff left everyone scratching their heads. Is this a case of mechanical defiance, or did that driver forget his manners? In one of the most shocking moments, a protest in Chicago unexpectedly morphed into a survival game. A police car barreled through a crowd of protesters standing on a sidewalk, leaving the audience in stunned silence before erupting into nervous laughter. It seemed as though the cops had taken the phrase, "disperse the protest," a little too literally. Did that really just happen? You might ask, yes, it did. The bizarre collision of authority and civil disobedience created a scene that was as horrifying as it was darkly comical. Not long after the Chicago chaos, a driver's reckless behavior took center stage. This guy sped through the protest like he was in his own action movie, ignoring everything in his path. In a matter of seconds, the police caught up, and the driver was arrested, rightfully so. "Why are you protecting these fools?" someone shouted from the crowd. It was a stark reminder that no matter how fast you drive, you can't outrun justice. The crowd's mix of anger and relief created a moment that was both cathartic and absurd. Amid the chaos, a lone motorcyclist decided he'd had enough. He revved his engine and sped toward a group of protesters blocking the road. His patience ran out so quickly that what began as a mild protest quickly spiraled into a full-on brawl. "If you want to make people hate your cause, block their way to work or home," he yelled, igniting a melee of shouts and clashing tempers. It was raw, unpredictable, and oddly satisfying to see someone push back when they're being blocked. In a scene straight out of an over-the-top action movie, a protest quickly turned into an impromptu bumper ballet. As cars and protesters collided, one driver's bumper took a massive hit that looked so slow-motion epic you'd think it was filmed in 4K. "Just imagine how hard that impact was," someone exclaimed, and the crowd erupted with a mix of applause and disbelief. It was a moment that perfectly captured the absurdity of it all, a chaotic dance between metal and human passion. Down in Brazil, protesters took to the streets demanding fair elections, and the scene was set for chaos when the police stepped in. Instead of dispersing the crowd peacefully, things got a bit creative. German eco-activists joined the mix, blocking the road with their own unique style, while one angry driver decided to handle things his own way, with a spray of environmentally friendly water. "Only water, folks," he shouted, as protesters and drivers exchanged incredulous looks. It was a clash of cultures and methods that left everyone both baffled and amused. Over in Portugal, drivers had their own answer to road blockades. When eco-activists took to the streets, The protest gradually shifted onto the sidewalk as drivers simply refused to be held hostage. "Sometimes, you just have to let it slide," one driver remarked, and the tension melted into a strangely calm resolution. It was as if the protesters had unknowingly choreographed a peaceful exit, leaving the street and the drivers almost amused by the whole ordeal. In Minneapolis, one guy thought he could drive right through a dense crowd of protesters. Spoiler, he quickly realized that wasn't such a brilliant idea. The moment his car stalled among the sea of determined faces, he regretted every decision that led him there. "Hold up, where's my exit?" he muttered, as protesters shook their heads in disbelief. It was a humbling, almost cartoonish moment that proved sometimes you just can't cut through a wall of passion. In the midst of protest-induced gridlock, a kind-hearted driver decided to lend a hand. Noticing that several vehicles were blocked from reaching their destinations, he carefully navigated his car to help clear a path. His unexpected act of kindness transformed a tense situation into a moment of genuine humanity. "Sometimes, all it takes is one person to change the whole vibe," he said with a grin. The gesture sparked applause and a few heartfelt laughs, reminding everyone that even in chaos, there's room for compassion. At one bustling intersection, the clash between protesters and cars reached peak insanity. As protesters formed a human barrier and drivers honked furiously, a moment of pure, unadulterated chaos unfolded. One driver, seemingly in a fit of madness, barreled through the crowd, causing a domino effect of near misses and heart-stopping moments. "Is this a traffic jam or an action movie?" someone yelled in disbelief. The scene was both horrifying and ridiculously funny, a perfect snapshot of urban anarchy. This is the moment you've all been waiting for, the ultimate showdown between protesters and cars. In a scene that defies logic, a convoy of immovable cars met an army of protesters determined to reclaim the streets. Chaotic stunts, near-miss collisions, and outrageous antics erupted in a clash that was part high-octane action, part dark comedy. "Ever seen a car try to run over a protester who just won't budge?" someone gasped as the tension reached its peak. Every honk, every shout, and every unexpected twist made this the wildest, most unforgettable battle of the day. And that, folks, is a wrap on today's insane journey through the world of protesters versus cars. From stubborn drivers and outrageous honking symphonies to wild chases and heartwarming acts of kindness, this roller coaster of chaos proves that reality can be stranger and funnier than fiction. Our craziest story of the ultimate showdown was the cherry on top of this unpredictable day. So what did we learn? That passion, persistence, and a little bit of reckless humor can turn even the most frustrating moments into unforgettable memories. Before you go, hit that like button, subscribe for more wild adventures, and share your own stories in the comments. Remember, keep your wheels turning and your spirits high, because the road is always full of surprises.